My name is Genevieve, and I'm 32 years old. Tonight is Christmas, and I'm sitting alone in my penthouse staring at the twinkling city lights below. 10 years ago, my father threw me out of our family home on Christmas night. What they didn't know then was that I would build a $67.9 million tech company. For years, I kept my success secret until I finally cut them off when they tried to use me. If you're watching this, let me know where you're from in the comments. Hit like and subscribe if you've ever had to stand up to toxic family members who only wanted you when you had something to offer. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in suburban Chicago in a house with blue shutters and a constantly leaking roof that my father Frank always promised to fix, but never did. Our family looked normal from the outside. Mom, Dad, older brother Michael, me and my younger sister Amelia. But inside those walls, things were different. My father had very specific ideas about what made someone valuable in this world. For him, my brother Michael was the golden child, athletic, sociable, and willing to follow in his footsteps at the family construction business. I was always the odd one out. From an early age, I preferred taking apart our family computer to playing with dolls or participating in the sports my father thought would make me well-rounded. "Genevieve, get your nose out of that computer and join the real world," became his daily mantra. He'd shake his head in disappointment when he found me coding or reading technology magazines. "Girls don't make careers out of playing with computers," he'd say, as if informing me of some universal truth. My mother Diana was different, at least at first. She would slip me books about female pioneers in science and technology, encouraging my interests behind my father's back. "You're going to change the world someday, Jenny," she'd whisper. But as the years passed, her spark dimmed. She became more passive, an enabler of my father's controlling behavior, rather than my protector. My sister Amelia learned quickly which parent held the power in our household. She followed my father's lead, often joining in when he belittled my interests. "Nobody's going to marry a computer nerd, Jenny," she'd taunt at the dinner table, knowing it would earn an approving nod from our father. Despite the discouragement at home, I excelled in school, particularly in math and science. My computer science teacher, Mrs. Harmon, became my biggest advocate. She stayed after school to give me additional programming challenges and introduced me to coding competitions. Under her guidance, I created my first app at 16, a simple program that helps students organize their study schedules. It won first place at the state technology fair, but when I came home with the trophy, my father merely glanced at it and asked, "How is this going to help you get into a decent college?" That question was ironic considering what happened during my senior year. I received a full scholarship to study computer science at a prestigious university in California. It was my dream come true, escape from my suffocating home and the opportunity to immerse myself in technology innovation. My father was furious. "Absolutely not," he declared over dinner. "No daughter of mine is moving across the country to waste time on some computer hobby. The community college is 15 minutes away. You can study business administration and live at home." That night, my mother came to my room. I thought she would stand up for me, but instead she said, "Your father only wants what's best for you, Jenny. California is so far away and we'd miss you terribly." Her eyes pleaded with me to give in to keep the peace. But for once, I refused to back down. "This is my future mom. I'm going." The months before I left were filled with cold silence from my father, tearful guilt trips from my mother, snide remarks from Amelia and my brother Michael, occasionally pulling me aside to say, "Just do what Dad wants. It's easier that way." I left for California with 2 suitcases and a determination to prove them all wrong. College was everything I'd hoped for, and more. I thrived in my classes, often staying up all night coding, fueled by passion rather than obligation. I graduated with honors while working part-time jobs to cover expenses my scholarship didn't. My family didn't attend my graduation. My father said it was too expensive to fly everyone out, though they had managed to attend 3 of Michael's football championships across the country. I told myself it didn't matter. I had professors who believed in me, friends who supported me, and a future brighter than anything I could have had if I'd stayed in Chicago. After graduation, I landed a job at a small tech startup that created efficiency software for businesses. My starting salary was modest, but I was excited to put my skills to work in the real world. I called my parents to share the news. "That's nice, Jenny," my mother said. "Is it a stable company, though Michael just got promoted to project manager at your father's company?" "It's a growing company with a lot of potential," I replied, already feeling my achievement diminish under their indifference. "Well," my father's voice boomed from the extension, "just make sure you're putting money into retirement. Those fly-by-night tech companies fold all the time. You can always come home if things don't work out." That was their response to every milestone I shared. Lukewarm acknowledgement followed by a reminder of Michael's superior achievements, or an offer of rescue when my California experiment inevitably failed. They were waiting for me to admit they had been right all along. But I was just getting started, and failure wasn't in my plans. My first year at the tech startup showed me both the exhilarating and brutal sides of the industry. I worked countless overtime hours, often sleeping under my desk to meet deadlines. My dedication paid off when the CEO personally recognized my contributions to a major project that saved one of our biggest clients from switching to a competitor. "We need more people like Genevieve on our team," he announced during the company meeting. She identified and fixed problems the rest of us didn't even see coming. The promotion that followed came with a substantial raise and my own small team to lead. When I called my family to share the news, my father responded with his typical skepticism. "Just make sure they're paying you what you're worth. Women in business often get shortchanged." Not congratulations, not pride, just another warning about how the world would eventually disappoint me. Despite their lack of enthusiasm, I was thriving. My team was developing innovative solutions for business logistics, and I began to see a gap in the market. Most small to medium businesses couldn't afford the comprehensive software packages that major corporations used, but they faced many of the same supply chain and inventory challenges. The idea struck me during a late-night coding session. What if we created a scalable, affordable logistics app specifically designed for smaller businesses? I started sketching out concepts and building basic prototypes during evenings and weekends, energized by the potential of creating something that could help thousands of struggling businesses. During this time, I met Sofia Rodriguez at an industry conference. 20 years my senior, with silver streaks in her dark hair, she had built and sold 2 successful tech companies and now mentored promising entrepreneurs. After hearing my pitch about the logistics app concept, she invited me to coffee. "You have something special here," Sophia said, reviewing my prototype on her tablet. "But you're thinking too small. This has potential beyond what you're envisioning." For the next few months, Sophia became my unofficial mentor. She challenged my thinking, connected me with industry experts, and pushed me to refine my business model. For the first time, I had someone who not only believed in my abilities but expected greatness from me. Meanwhile, my family's attitude toward my career hadn't improved. I flew home for Thanksgiving, hoping that 3 years of established success in California might have changed their perspective. The holiday started pleasantly enough, with my mother fussing over how thin I'd become, and my brother Michael giving me a genuine hug. My father nodded approvingly at my designer handbag, a splurge from my recent bonus. "Finally making some decent money out there, huh?" Things deteriorated during dinner when my uncle asked about my work. As I began explaining our company's services, my father interrupted. "Genevieve plays with computers all day. Michael just secured the Wilson contract, $3 million for the family business. That's real work." The table murmured appreciatively while I swallowed my frustration with a gulp of wine. Later, my mother found me in the kitchen and whispered, "Your father just wants what's best for you. He's worried you're focused too much on career. Michael's already given us 2 grandchildren. Don't you want a family someday?" 3 months later, I returned for Michael's wedding, where I was assigned to watch the younger cousins during the reception, while everyone else celebrated. I spent the evening wiping sticky faces and breaking up squabbles instead of networking with potential investors who happened to be family friends in attendance. Resentment grew, but I still called home weekly, sent birthday and holiday gifts, and made requisite visits. I wanted desperately to maintain family connections, despite the undercurrents of disapproval. They were my family after all. Wasn't I supposed to keep trying? By my third year at the startup, my side project had evolved into a robust prototype ready for real-world testing. Sophia introduced me to several angel investors who showed serious interest. After much consideration, I made the difficult decision to leave my stable job and launch my own company. When I shared my decision with my family during a Sunday phone call, the response was immediate and unanimous disapproval. "You're throwing away a perfectly good career to chase some pipe dream," my father growled. "Startups fail all the time, Jenny," my mother fretted. "Dad says 90% of new businesses don't last a year," Amelia added helpfully. Even Michael, who rarely offered opinions about my life, chimed in. "This sounds really risky, sis. You've got a good thing going already." Despite their predictions of doom, I submitted my resignation the next day. With initial seed funding, a small team of 3 developers I'd recruited, and Sophia's mentorship, I founded Logisync Solutions. Our mission to revolutionize logistics and inventory management for small businesses with affordable, user-friendly technology. The early days were terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. We worked out of a tiny office with mismatched furniture and temperamental air conditioning. I took a significant pay cut, pouring everything back into the business. Every night I fell into bed exhausted but filled with purpose. This was my vision coming to life, despite every person who said I couldn't or shouldn't pursue it. I was finally building something that was entirely mine beyond the shadow of my father's expectations or my family's limited view of my potential. But I had no idea that the true breaking point in our relationship was just around the corner. As December approached, our fledgling company reached a critical milestone. After months of pitching, tweaking, and demonstrating our product, we secured a commitment from a mid-sized regional grocery chain to pilot our logistics software across their 12 locations. Even more exciting, Sophia had arranged a meeting with her former colleagues at a venture capital firm who had expressed serious interest in providing substantial funding. Things were falling into place professionally, though my personal life consisted mainly of instant noodles, 4-hour sleep cycles, and the occasional movie night with my small team. Despite the distance and tension with my family, I decided to fly home for Christmas. In my mind, I imagined sharing my good news and finally seeing pride in my father's eyes. I arrived at O'Hare on December 23rd, rented a car, and drove through familiar neighborhoods, now decorated with festive lights. The house looked exactly the same. Blue shutters, leaking roof, now dusted with snow. My mother greeted me with a tight hug that smelled of cinnamon and pine. My father offered a stiff nod from his recliner eyes, never leaving the football game on TV. That evening, as I helped my mother prepare vegetables for Christmas Eve dinner, she seemed nervous. "Your father's company has been having a tough year," she confided. "The Wilson contract fell through, and they had to let some people go." "Is Michael's job okay?" I asked. "Oh yes, he's family. But your father's been under tremendous stress. Try not to upset him during the holidays, okay, Jenny?" I understood the subtext. Don't talk about your success. Don't outshine your brother. Don't rock the boat. Christmas Eve dinner was always an extended family affair at our house. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and my grandfather all crowded around the dining room table, extended with card tables at each end. I sat between my cousin's 7-year-old and my grandfather, as far from my father as possible. The evening progressed with typical family dynamics. Uncle Pete arguing politics with Aunt Martha, cousins comparing college experiences, my mother shuttling dishes back and forth from the kitchen. My father, seated at the head of the table, consumed glass after glass of whiskey, his cheeks growing increasingly flushed. When dessert was served, my grandfather turned to me and asked loudly, "So, Jenny, what's new with your computer job in California?" The table quieted somewhat, all eyes turning toward me. For the first time that evening, I felt a spark of excitement. This was my chance to share what I'd been working so hard to achieve. Actually, I left that position to start my own company. I began noticing my father's posture stiffen at the head of the table. "We've developed software that helps small businesses manage their inventory and supply chains more efficiently. We just signed our first major client, and we're meeting with investors after New Year's." "You started a whole company," my cousin Jennifer asked, sounding genuinely impressed. That's amazing, I smiled, warming to the subject. It's been challenging, but incredibly rewarding. We're hoping to... She quit a perfectly stable job to gamble on some app idea. My father interrupted, his words slightly slurred. Typical Genevieve, always thinking she knows better than everyone else. The table went silent. My mother looked down at her plate. My brother Michael studied his dessert with sudden intense interest. It's not a gamble, Dad, I said quietly. We've done market research, secured initial clients, and have interest from serious investors. He laughed sharply. Interest isn't money in the bank. But you always did live with your head in the clouds. I felt my face growing hot. Actually, we've already secured seed funding and... Enough. His fist came down on the table, causing cups to jump and silverware to clatter. Every holiday, every family gathering, you come in here with your California attitude and your tech talk, making everyone feel small about their normal lives and real jobs. Frank, my mother said softly, it's Christmas Eve. He ignored her. While your brother has been helping me keep the family business afloat, providing for his wife and children, being a responsible adult, you've been playing entrepreneur with your little computer program. The room was so quiet, I could hear the ticking of the antique clock in the hallway. No one moved. No one spoke in my defense. Not my mother, not my siblings, not my extended family who moments ago had seemed impressed by my achievements. I'm not trying to make anyone feel small, I said finally. I'm just sharing what's happening in my life like everyone else at this table. My father stood up, swaying slightly. Your life choices are a slap in the face to this family and everything we stand for. You think you're better than us with your California startup and your fancy investors. I fought back tears, refusing to let him see me cry. That's not true. I've worked incredibly hard to build something meaningful. Meaningful? He scoffed. You know what's meaningful? 30 years running a business that employs real people in this community, supporting a family, building something that lasts, not some flash-in-the-pan tech scheme that'll be bankrupt before next Christmas. I looked around the table, hoping someone would speak up. My sister Amelia was texting under the table, clearly uncomfortable, but unwilling to get involved. My brother caught my eye briefly before looking away. My mother had disappeared into the kitchen. I think I've lost my appetite, I said, placing my napkin beside my half-eaten pie. Excuse me. I retreated upstairs to my childhood bedroom, now converted to a guest room with no trace of my previous existence. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to regulate my breathing and stop the tears that threatened to spill over. A soft knock came at the door. Jenny. My mother entered, carrying a small package wrapped in silver paper. I brought your Christmas gift. I thought maybe you'd like to open it tonight. I took the box, noting how her hands trembled slightly. Thanks, Mom. Your father doesn't mean to be harsh. He just doesn't understand your world. It scares him a little, I think. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak without crying or saying something I'd regret. Maybe you could apologize at breakfast tomorrow for the sake of peace on Christmas Day. I looked up at her in disbelief. Apologize for what, Mom? For starting a successful company, for following my dreams instead of Dad's plan for me? She wrung her hands. Just for arguing at the table. You know how he gets when he feels challenged. Before I could respond, heavy footsteps approached. My father appeared in the doorway, still clutching a whiskey glass. Diana, why are you coddling her? She's a grown woman who needs to hear the truth. My mother instantly stepped back, her momentary advocacy evaporating. I brought you something, he said, tossing a small gift bag onto the bed beside me. Though after that performance downstairs, I'm not sure you deserve it. Something inside me snapped. Years of diminishment, of having my achievements belittled, of being treated as less valuable than my siblings, crystallized into a moment of pure clarity. I stood up. I don't want your gift with strings attached, I said, voice steady despite my racing heart. I don't want your conditional love or your approval that only comes when I make myself small enough not to threaten your ego. His face darkened. That's how you speak to your father, after everything we've given you. Given me? I laughed incredulously. What exactly have you given me, Dad? Because from where I stand, you've done nothing but tear down every dream, belittle every achievement, and make me feel like an outsider in my own family since I was a child. He snatched the gift bag back and threw it against the wall. The sound of breaking glass punctuated the silence that followed. I later learned it was a crystal ornament that had belonged to my grandmother, deliberately selected as something meaningful to me that he could destroy. If you can't act like a part of this family, respecting your father and appreciating what you have, then you don't belong under this roof, he growled. Frank, my mother gasped. It's Christmas. I don't care what day it is. No child of mine speaks to me that way in my own house. He turned back to me. You have a choice, Genevieve. Apologize and act like a member of this family, or get out. I looked from my father's red, angry face to my mother's pale, frightened one. In that moment, I saw my future stretching before me. Decades of diminishing myself to keep peace, of having my accomplishments dismissed, of walking on eggshells to avoid triggering his fragile ego. With shaking hands, I reached for my suitcase and began packing. What are you doing? My mother asked, voice barely a whisper. Making a choice, I replied. My father stood in the doorway, watching me pack with grim satisfaction, clearly expecting me to break down and apologize at any moment. When I zipped the suitcase closed and grabbed my coat, a flicker of surprise crossed his face. You're really choosing to leave on Christmas Eve? He asked. No, Dad. You're choosing to throw me out. There's a difference. I brushed past him and headed downstairs. The extended family was still at the dining table, conversation awkwardly resuming. All eyes turned to me as I appeared with my coat and suitcase. Leaving so soon, Genevieve? My aunt asked nervously. Apparently I don't belong here, I replied, my voice breaking slightly. No one moved. No one protested. My brother looked at me with what might have been regret, but he remained seated beside his pregnant wife. My sister stared intently at her phone. I walked out the front door into the snowy December night with no plan and nowhere to go. Behind me, I heard my mother call my name once softly, but the door closed before I could turn around. Sitting in my rental car, snow accumulating on the windshield, I called the only person I knew would answer. Sophia, I'm sorry to bother you on Christmas Eve, I said, unable to keep my voice from shaking. I need a place to stay. Where are you? She asked without hesitation. Chicago. My father just threw me out. There's a flight to San Francisco at 11 p.m. I'll book you a ticket and pick you up at the airport. Go to the executive lounge. They'll have your name. As I drove away from the house with blue shutters for what I didn't yet know would be the last time for many years, I made a promise to myself. I would build something so undeniably successful that even my father couldn't diminish it. And I would never again make myself small to soothe someone else's insecurities. The tiny studio apartment I rented after returning to San Francisco became both my home and office. A twin mattress in one corner, a desk with dual monitors in the other, and a kitchen consisting of a mini fridge, microwave, and coffee maker. Luxury it was not, but it represented something precious: independence. This is temporary, I told myself daily. Just until we get the next round of funding. The rejection from my family fueled me with a determination that bordered on obsession. I worked 18-hour days, often forgetting to eat, until Sophia called to check on me. My small team noticed the change in my intensity, but attributed it to normal startup pressure rather than personal trauma. We need to nail this investor meeting, I told my team in early January. I've refined our pitch deck based on Sophia's feedback. We're asking for $500,000 in exchange for 8% equity. Jason, my lead developer, whistled. That's ambitious. We've got a working product, a signed client agreement, and projections showing profitability within 18 months, I countered. It's not ambitious. It's realistic. The investment meeting went better than we'd hoped. Instead of $500,000, the venture capital firm offered $750,000, impressed by both our product and the early client testimonials we'd gathered from the grocery chain's pilot program. The catch was, they wanted 12% equity instead of 8%. After tense negotiations, we settled on $700,000 for 10%. I called Sophia immediately after signing the term sheet. "We got the funding," I exclaimed. "We can finally hire the additional developers we need and move into a real office." "Congratulations, Genevieve," Sophia said warmly. "How are you going to celebrate?" The question caught me off guard. Celebration hadn't crossed my mind. Probably order takeout and keep working on the feature list for version 2.0. Sophia laughed. "That's not a celebration. I'm taking you out to dinner tonight. No shop talk allowed. You've earned at least one evening of normalcy." That dinner was the first time I'd relaxed in weeks. Sophia insisted I try foods I'd never heard of, made me laugh with stories of her own startup disasters, and gently prodded me to talk about something other than work. When I mentioned my family situation, she didn't offer platitudes or urge reconciliation. "Sometimes the hardest people to establish boundaries with are family," she said, swirling her wine thoughtfully, "because they're the ones who installed all your buttons in the first place, and they know exactly how to push them." With the new funding, we moved into a proper office in South of Market and expanded our team to 12 people. I hired a business operations manager to handle the day-to-day running of the company, freeing me to focus on product development and client acquisition. Our logistics software caught the attention of a retail giant looking to optimize their supply chain for smaller satellite stores. The resulting contract tripled our projected revenue for the year. We weren't just staying afloat, we were swimming strongly against the current that drowns most startups in their first year. Late one night, as I was preparing for a major client presentation, my phone lit up with my mother's number. It had been 5 months since the Christmas disaster. My finger hovered over the screen before I finally answered. "Hello?" "Jenny, it's Mom." Her voice sounded small and uncertain. "How are you, sweetheart?" The familiar endearment sent an unexpected pang through my chest. "I'm fine. Busy with work." "That's good," she said. "We miss you." I said nothing, waiting for what would come next. "Your father has been asking about you," she continued. "He was wondering if you're still doing your computer business." I almost laughed at the deliberate diminishment. "Yes, Mom. I'm still running my company. We just signed a major retail client and expanded our team." "That's wonderful," she said without asking for details. "So things are working out then?" "Yes, things are working out very well." I paused before adding, "Is that why you called to see if I failed yet?" "Genevieve." "Of course not." She sounded hurt. "I called because you're my daughter and I love you." Because love should include respect, Mom. And no one in this family has ever respected me or my choices." She was quiet for a moment. "Your father is the way he is. He comes from a different generation. But he does love you." "Has he said that? Has he expressed any regret for throwing me out on Christmas Eve?" Another pause. "He's a proud man, Jenny. You know he struggles with apologies." I closed my eyes, suddenly exhausted. "I have to go, Mom. I have an early meeting tomorrow." "Oh, will you call soon? Maybe you could visit for your birthday next month?" The thought of returning to that house made my stomach clench. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Please, Jenny. For me?" The guilt trip was so familiar, it almost felt comfortable. But I wasn't the same person who had left Chicago. "I can't, Mom. I'm not ready to see Dad, or anyone else who sat at that table and watched him throw me out without saying a word." We were all shocked. It happened so fast. It happened after 30 years of him undermining me at every turn with all of you enabling him. I need to focus on my company right now. That's where my energy needs to go. After hanging up, I stared at the presentation on my screen, the figures and charts blurring as unexpected tears filled my eyes. Part of me had hoped she would say they were proud of me, that they recognized their treatment had been unfair, that they wanted to make amends. Instead, it was the same dynamic. My father's pride more important than my feelings, my success an afterthought to family harmony. I threw myself even more intensely into growing the company. We expanded our software capabilities, hiring AI specialists to develop predictive analytics for inventory management. Our client list grew from local businesses to national chains. By the end of our first full year of operations, We had secured Series A funding of $5 million, valuing the company at $20 million. The timing of the funding announcement was coincidental but poetic, exactly 1 year after being thrown out of my family home. I celebrated by buying my first luxury purchase, a penthouse apartment overlooking the bay. Standing on the balcony, that first night, glass of champagne in hand, I thought about how far I'd come from the crying woman in a rental car outside her parents' house. As our profile rose in the tech industry, we began receiving media attention. I was featured in Business Insider as one of 30 under 30 founders to watch. The article mentioned my rapid rise but contained no personal details. I'd been careful to keep my family situation private. Occasionally, I'd receive texts from my sister or emails from my mother. Small attempts to maintain connection without addressing the underlying issues. I responded politely but briefly, keeping them at arm's length. My brother called once, awkwardly asking how I was doing before mentioning a friend who was looking for a job in tech. I gave him my HR director's email but never heard if his friend applied. 3 years passed in a blur of growth challenges and triumphs. Our company expanded to 60 employees. We moved to larger offices twice. I bought a vacation home in Lake Tahoe that I rarely had time to visit. On paper, my life looked perfect. Successful company, financial security, beautiful homes. But on quiet nights when the emails stopped and the meetings ended, I felt the hollow space where family should be. Not the family that had rejected me, but the concept of family. People who celebrated your victories, supported your dreams, and loved you unconditionally. Sophia noticed my isolation and began inviting me to holidays with her family. Blood doesn't make family, she told me. Commitment does. My family has decided you belong at our table if you want to be there. Gradually, I built a circle of trusted friends and colleagues who became my chosen family. We celebrated holidays together, supported each other through professional challenges, and created traditions that had nothing to do with obligation and everything to do with genuine connection. In my 4th year as CEO, with our company valuation approaching $45 million, I received an unexpected email from my sister Amelia. "Hi Jenny, I saw your company mentioned in Forbes. That's amazing. I always knew you were the smart one in the family. Would love to catch up sometime. Coffee when you're next in Chicago. Amy." The casual tone, as if we'd simply lost touch, rather than her witnessing my expulsion from the family, was jarring. Even more surprising was the request to meet. After consulting with my therapist, another positive change I'd made, I agreed to coffee during my upcoming business trip to Chicago. We met at an upscale cafe in the Loop, far from our old neighborhood. Amelia looked essentially the same. Perfectly styled hair, designer clothes, immaculate makeup. She hugged me enthusiastically, as if we were simply sisters who lived in different cities, rather than estranged family members. "You look amazing," she gushed. "California clearly agrees with you." "Thanks," I said, studying her face for signs of the sister I'd once known. "How have you been?" "Good, busy with the kids. I have 2 now, can you believe it? Lily is 4 and Jake is 2. She pulled out her phone to show me photos of children I'd never met. "And I started a small interior design business. Nothing like what you're doing, of course." As we caught up, I noticed she carefully avoided mentioning our parents or the circumstances of our estrangement. When I finally brought it up directly, she looked uncomfortable. "That was awful," she admitted. "Dad was way out of line. But you know how he gets, especially when he's been drinking." "That doesn't excuse it, Amelia." "No, of course not." She stirred her latte nervously. "But family is family. You know Mom misses you terribly." And there it was, the real reason for this meeting. My mother had sent her to pave the way for reconciliation. "How are Mom and Dad doing?" I asked neutrally. Amelia hesitated. "Dad's company has been struggling. The economy plus some health issues he's been having. Mom's worried about him." I nodded, understanding the subtext. My father's business was in trouble, and they'd noticed my rising profile and success. The timing wasn't coincidental. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said sincerely. "I hope his health improves. Would you consider calling Mom? It would mean so much to her." I considered my sister, who had aligned herself with our father's cruelty for years, now acting as the family ambassador. "I'll think about it," I said finally. True to my word, I did think about it. 2 weeks later, I called my mother for the first time in nearly 2 years. She cried when she heard my voice telling me how proud she was of what I'd accomplished, though she clearly knew very little about my actual company or work. "Would you consider coming for dinner when you're next in Chicago?" she asked tentatively. "Just me and you. Your father will be at his lodge meeting." I agreed to a cautious dinner held at a restaurant rather than the family home. My mother seemed older, more fragile, but still with that same nervous energy, eyes darting around as if looking for approval or criticism from invisible observers. "Your company is doing well?" she asked after we'd ordered. "Very well," I confirmed. "We're expanding internationally next year." "Your father saw something about you in the business section. He was impressed, though he'd never say it out loud." I doubted that, but nodded politely. "Would you consider meeting with him? He's not the same. The business troubles have humbled him." I set down my fork. "Mom, he threw me out of the house on Christmas Eve. He's never apologized or even acknowledged that was wrong. Why would I want to see him?" "Because he's your father," she said, as if that explained and excused everything. "Family should forgive. Forgiveness requires acknowledgement of wrongdoing and changed behavior," I said. "Has he shown either?" She looked down at her plate. "He asked about you last week." "That's a start, isn't it?" It wasn't, but I could see she desperately needed to believe it was. I changed the subject, asking about my niece and nephew instead. By dessert, I'd learned that my brother was now running what remained of my father's construction company, that Amelia's husband had been promoted at his law firm, and that my mother's garden club had won a regional competition. As we parted, she hugged me tightly. "Please don't stay away so long again. Whatever happened with your father, I'm still your mother. I still love you." I hugged her back, acknowledging the complicated truth that I still loved her too, despite her failure to protect me when I needed it most. 2 days later, my brother Michael called. After awkward pleasantries, he got to the point. "One of my college buddies is looking to relocate to San Francisco. He's in software sales. Any chance your company might need someone like that?" The request was so transparent I almost laughed. "We hire through our HR department based on qualifications, not personal connections." "Right, of course," he backpedaled. "Just thought I'd ask since you're doing so well out there." By this point, I understood the pattern. My success had changed how my family perceived me. I was no longer the disappointment, but a potential resource. They wanted access to my connections, my influence, my money, but not one of them had acknowledged the damage they'd done or the years of dismissing my potential. The company continued its meteoric rise. We declined acquisition offers from tech giants, preferring to maintain independence and control over our vision. Our valuation reached $67.9 million after a revolutionary update to our software that integrated AI-driven supply chain optimization with user-friendly interfaces accessible to even the smallest businesses. As Christmas approached again, 7 years after the night I'd been thrown out, I received a formal invitation to the family holiday gathering. The card, addressed in my mother's handwriting, included a personal note. "We would all love to see you. Your father especially wants to reconnect." I stared at the invitation for a long time, remembering the humiliation of that night, the silence of everyone at the table, the cold certainty in my father's eyes that I would fail without his support. 7 years later, I had built something extraordinary, not to prove him wrong, but because I believed in my vision. After careful consideration and discussion with my therapist, I decided to attend. Not to seek approval or forgiveness, but to close a chapter properly on my terms. I booked a suite at Chicago's finest hotel rather than staying at the family home, and arranged for a car service rather than renting a vehicle. What I didn't know was that my return to the family Christmas table would reveal exactly how much and how little had changed in 7 years. The chauffeur-driven car pulled up to the familiar house with blue shutters, now with a new roof and fresh paint. Through the windows, I could see the Christmas tree glittering in the living room, surrounded by gathered family members. For a moment, I considered telling the driver to turn around to take me back to the sanctuary of my hotel suite. But I had come this far. I needed to see this through. The door opened before I could knock, revealing my mother with arms outstretched. "Genevieve, you're here." She embraced me tightly, the scent of her perfume, the same she'd worn my entire life, bringing an unexpected wave of nostalgia. "Merry Christmas, Mom," I said, returning her hug before stepping back to hand her the gift bags I'd brought. Inside were carefully selected presents for each family member. Tasteful, expensive, but not ostentatious. The living room fell silent as I entered. My extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, stared with undisguised curiosity. My sister Amelia rushed forward to hug me, followed by my brother Michael. Their children hovered uncertainly behind them, these nieces and nephews, who knew me only from occasional video calls. And then there was my father standing by the fireplace, tumbler of whiskey in hand, just as he had been 7 years ago. He looked older, smaller somehow, his once commanding presence diminished by time and circumstance. He nodded stiffly. "Genevieve, you made it." "I said I would," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. An awkward silence descended until my mother jumped in. "Dinner's almost ready. Genevieve, can I get you a drink?" The evening proceeded with a strange performative quality. My extended family treated me like a visiting celebrity, asking about my successful tech company in California, with exaggerated interest. My cousins, who had never bothered to stay in touch, now wanted to connect on LinkedIn. An uncle I barely remembered pulled me aside to ask if I could recommend his son for one of those high-paying tech jobs. Throughout dinner, I noticed my father watching me. Not with the dismissive contempt of years past, but with something I couldn't quite identify. Calculation, perhaps, or reassessment. When it came time for his traditional Christmas toast, he raised his glass. "To family gathered here tonight. To successes big and small. We're particularly proud of Genevieve, who has shown remarkable entrepreneurial spirit, something she clearly inherited from her old man." I nearly choked on my wine. The audacity of claiming credit for the success he had repeatedly predicted would fail. The success he had actively discouraged and belittled was breathtaking. I caught Sophia's voice in my head. "Breathe. You're not that desperate girl anymore. You have nothing to prove." After dinner, as dessert was being served, my father approached. "Got a minute to talk privately in my office downstairs?" I hesitated before nodding. We descended to the finished basement, now converted into a home office dominated by a large wooden desk. Framed newspaper clippings about his construction company hung on the walls alongside family photos, though I noticed I was absent from most of them. "You've done well for yourself," he said, settling into his desk chair while gesturing for me to take the seat opposite. "Very impressive." "Thank you," I said simply. "Your mother follows all those articles about you. She's got a whole scrapbook." I hadn't known that. It touched me and saddened me simultaneously. My mother privately collecting evidence of my success while never overtly celebrating it. "I want you to know," he continued, leaning forward, "that I always believed you had potential. Maybe I pushed you hard because I saw how smart you were." The revisionist history was almost amusing. "That's not how I remember it, Dad." He waved dismissively. "Water under the bridge now. The important thing is you've built something valuable, something substantial." "Yes, I have." "Which brings me to why I wanted to talk privately." He opened a desk drawer and pulled out a folder. "I've got a proposition for you. A family investment opportunity." I raised an eyebrow. "Investment opportunity. The construction business has hit some rough patches. Material costs skyrocketing, labor shortages, clients delaying payments. Nothing we can't weather with a little capital infusion." He slid the folder across the desk. "I've drawn up a business plan. We need about $2 million to stabilize and expand into more profitable sectors." I stared at him, momentarily speechless. 7 years without a genuine apology, without acknowledgement of how he'd treated me, and his first real conversation was a request for money. "You want me to invest $2 million in your company," I clarified. "It's a family business, Genevieve. Eventually it will belong to you kids anyway. This is just accelerating the timeline a bit. He leaned back, confident in his reasoning. Family helps family. That's how it works. I opened the folder and scanned the contents. Financial statements showing substantial debt projections that seemed wildly optimistic, and a proposed partnership structure that would give me minimal say in operations despite a major financial contribution. "How long have you been planning to ask me for this?" I asked, closing the folder. He shrugged. "Been thinking about it since we saw that Forbes article valuing your company. Michael thought it made sense to bring you in as a partner. Combine our strengths, so to speak." "I see." I pushed the folder back across the desk. "I'll need to review this more thoroughly with my financial advisors." His expression tightened. "This is a family matter, Genevieve, not something to discuss with outsiders. $2 million is never just a family matter, Dad. It's business." He stood abruptly. "I raised you better than to put money before family." The irony was so thick I could barely breathe. "Did you? Because I remember being thrown out of this house for not meeting your expectations. I remember years of being told my dreams were worthless. I remember an entire family watching in silence as you chose your ego over your daughter on Christmas Eve." His face reddened. "That was a misunderstanding. You were disrespectful." I was honest. There's a difference. We stared at each other across the desk, decades of misunderstanding and hurt crystallized in the space between us. Finally, I stood. "I need some air," I said, turning toward the stairs. As I reached the main floor, my mother intercepted me. "Everything okay?" she asked anxiously. "Did you and your father have a nice talk?" "He asked me for $2 million, Mom." She at least had the grace to look embarrassed. "He's just proud, Jenny. Asking for help doesn't come easily to him. Has he ever considered apologizing first, acknowledging what he did?" She glanced around nervously. "We've all moved past that unpleasantness, haven't we? We're family. Have we moved past it? Or have you just been waiting until I was successful enough to be useful?" Before she could answer, my sister Amelia joined us, linking her arm through mine. "Mom's been telling everyone at her garden club about your big tech company," she said cheerfully. "She says you're practically famous in Silicon Valley." My mother smiled weakly. "I'm very proud. I always supported your computer interests. Remember I gave you that book about women in technology for your birthday?" The selective memory was stunning. "Mom, when Dad threw me out, you didn't stop him. You didn't call to check if I had a place to stay. You didn't stand up for me." "It was complicated, Jenny. Your father was under so much stress with the business." "It's always complicated with him, isn't it? And always excused." I gently disengaged from Amelia's grip. "I need some fresh air." I stepped onto the back porch, the cold December air a relief after the stifling atmosphere inside. A few minutes later, my brother Michael joined me, offering a glass of bourbon, which I declined. "So Dad pitched you on the investment," he said, leaning against the railing. "You knew about that?" He nodded. "It was my idea, actually. The business is in trouble, Jenny. Serious trouble. Dad's over-leveraged took out a second mortgage on the house. If things don't turn around, Mom could lose everything. And you thought I should bail him out after everything that happened?" He sipped his bourbon. "I thought it was a win-win. You have the capital, we have an established business with assets and local reputation. Plus, it would give you a reason to come back more often. My kids barely know their aunt." "That's not my fault, Michael. I didn't choose to be estranged from this family." He had the decency to look ashamed. "I know. I should have said something that night. We all should have." It was the first acknowledgement from anyone in my family that they had failed me. "Why didn't you—" He stared into his glass. Dad was the provider, the authority. Going against him meant risking everything: jobs, financial support, family harmony. It was easier to let you go because you were already independent. You had California, your own life. I had nothing, Michael. I called a friend from my car because I had nowhere to go on Christmas Eve." He winced. "I'm sorry, Jenny. I really am." After a pause, he added, "So about the investment," I laughed bitterly. "Unbelievable. You apologize and immediately ask for money in the same breath." "It's not just about money," he insisted. It's about keeping the family business alive. Dad started it from nothing. It's his legacy. His legacy. I repeated the words thoughtfully. What about his legacy as a father, as a person who crushed his daughter's dreams until she had to leave to survive? Is that part of what we're preserving? Before Michael could answer, the back door opened and my sister Amelia stepped out. There you are. Everyone's looking for you. We're about to do the family photo for social media. Social media? I asked. Yeah, Mom wants a nice picture of all of us together to post. She's been telling everyone you're coming home for Christmas. Amelia took out her phone. Actually, would you mind if I did a quick video for my Instagram? Having a successful CEO sister is great for my brand. Something clicked in my mind. Is that why you reached out after all this time, to leverage my success for your social media presence? She looked genuinely confused. What? No. Well, I mean, it doesn't hurt, right? Everyone's into building their personal brand these days. When did you actually start caring about my success, Amelia? Was it before or after you saw the Forbes article? She shifted uncomfortably. That's not fair. We've always been proud of you. Have you? Because I remember you sitting at the table in silence while Dad threw me out. I remember you texting during that entire scene, not even looking up. I was young, she protested. I didn't know what to do. And now you know exactly what to do. Capitalize on having a successful sister when it's convenient. I turned to go back inside but paused at the door. Was this whole evening planned as some kind of social media moment, reconciliation with the successful daughter at Christmas? The guilty look that passed between my siblings told me everything. Inside, I found my mother arranging everyone by the tree for photos. When she spotted me, she waved enthusiastically. Genevieve, come stand between your father and Michael. We want to get a nice family picture for the holiday card next year. Something in me broke and mended simultaneously. A final illusion shattered a truth finally acknowledged. This wasn't about reconciliation or genuine remorse. It was about appearances, social currency, and financial gain. My father emerged from his office, the investment folder still in his hand. Seeing the camera set up, he smiled broadly, a smile I'd rarely seen directed at me throughout my childhood. There's my successful daughter, he announced loudly. Silicon Valley CEO comes home for Christmas. I stood still in the center of the room, looking at these people who shared my blood, but who had never truly seen me for who I was. They had dismissed my dreams when I was struggling, and now wanted to attach themselves to my success without acknowledging the journey or their role in making it more difficult. I can't do this, I said quietly. Do what, dear? Just stand by the tree, my mother urged. Pretend that everything is fine. Pretend we're one big happy family for your social media posts. Pretend my father didn't throw me out of this house on Christmas and that none of you stopped him. The room fell silent. My father's smile faded. That was years ago, Genevieve. Time to let it go. Let it go, I repeated. Like you've let go of the construction business failing, like you've let go of needing $2 million. Some things don't just go away because they're inconvenient, Dad. Is that what this visit is about? Throwing the past in our faces when we're trying to move forward as a family? He looked around the room, seeking allies. We invited her back, opened our home, and now she wants to dredge up ancient history. It's not ancient history to me, I said. None of you have ever acknowledged what happened, let alone apologized. Instead, you've rewritten the story to make yourselves the supportive family of the successful daughter. My mother stepped forward, distressed. Jenny, please. It's Christmas. It was Christmas when he threw me out too, Mom. That didn't seem to matter then. I turned to address the entire room, extended family included. I didn't come back seeking apologies or to settle old scores. I came because I thought maybe, just maybe, something had genuinely changed. But it's clear nothing has. You don't want me. You want access to what I've built despite you, not because of you. I picked up my coat and purse from the entryway chair. My father followed me, his face tight with anger and embarrassment. If you walk out that door again, don't bother coming back, he threatened, falling back on the same ultimatum from 7 years earlier. I turned to face him one last time. The difference is, this time I'm choosing to leave. And I'm not leaving with nothing. I'm leaving with the knowledge that I built a life and a company on my own terms without compromising who I am to please people who never saw my worth. Looking past him to my mother, sister, and brother, I added, I wish you all well, truly. But I won't be investing in the construction company, and I won't be part of this pretense. Family should be about more than what you can get from each other. With that, I walked out the front door. Unlike 7 years ago, I wasn't crying. I wasn't desperate. I had a driver waiting a beautiful hotel suite and a flight back to San Francisco the next day, where people who genuinely cared about me would be waiting. As the car pulled away from the house with blue shutters, I didn't look back. Some doors are meant to close permanently, so better ones can open. The flight back to San Francisco was quiet, giving me time to process everything that had happened. I wasn't heartbroken this time, just clear-eyed about who my family was and who they would always be. The disappointment was there, but it no longer had the power to devastate me. When I arrived at my penthouse, I found it filled with fresh flowers and a note from my executive team. Welcome home, boss. Ready when you are to conquer 2025. These were the people who had seen my vision, believed in my leadership, and worked alongside me to build something meaningful. They had become more family to me than the people who shared my DNA. The first few weeks after Christmas were busy with end-of-year reports and planning for the next quarter. I immersed myself in work, finding comfort in the familiar challenges and victories. One evening, Sophia called to check on me. How are you doing after the Chicago disaster? She asked directly. Better than I expected, I admitted. It was actually clarifying to see that nothing had really changed. No more illusions to maintain. That kind of clarity is valuable even when it hurts. It does hurt, I acknowledged. Not because I lost them, but because I finally accepted they were never what I needed them to be. That's grief too, Sophia said gently. Grieving the family you deserved but never had. She was right. There was grief in letting go of the fantasy that someday my father would see my worth, that my mother would stand up for me, that my siblings would be true allies. But there was also freedom in that release, freedom to build connections based on mutual respect rather than obligation. I took practical steps to protect myself and my company from future claims or manipulation. My lawyers drafted documents formally cutting financial ties with my family, including explicit statements that my business success was achieved independently. I updated my will to direct my assets toward education funds for underprivileged girls interested in technology, with only token amounts to my nieces and nephews, not to punish them for their parents' actions, but to ensure my legacy would support my values. The emotional healing was more challenging than the practical measures. I found a therapist who specialized in family estrangement and childhood emotional neglect. In those sessions, I unpacked decades of subtle and overt messages that I was less valuable, less worthy of support than others in my family. Your success wasn't about proving them wrong, my therapist noted during one session. It was about proving yourself right. That perspective shift was powerful. I hadn't built LogiSync to show my father his error in judgment. I'd built it because I genuinely believed in the vision and my ability to execute it. The company wasn't a response to rejection, but an expression of my authentic self. As I worked through these realizations, I began opening myself to deeper personal connections. For years, I'd kept potential friends and romantic partners at a distance, fearing they too would eventually find me lacking or would only value what I could provide them. Now I took tentative steps toward vulnerability and trust. At a charity auction for girls in STEM education, I met James, a pediatric surgeon who bid against me for a rare first edition of Ada Lovelace's notes. When we ended up in a bidding war, the auctioneer suggested we split the difference and share the prize. Over coffee to discuss custody arrangements for the book, I found myself charmed by his intelligence and quiet confidence. Why pediatric surgery? I asked him. I like fixing things that have the whole future ahead of them, he answered simply. We began dating cautiously. I was transparent about my trust issues and family situation. He was patient and consistent. 6 months in, when he hadn't pushed for anything I wasn't ready to give, I realized this was what healthy attachment felt like: supportive without being suffocating, caring without expecting performance in return. Meanwhile, the company continued to thrive. We expanded internationally, opening offices in London and Singapore. Our valuation climbed past $100 million. I was featured in Forbes as one of the most innovative women in tech and gave a TED Talk about democratizing supply chain technology for small businesses. The scared young woman who had been thrown out on Christmas night was now a respected industry leader. With my growing platform came opportunities to support others. I established a scholarship fund for girls pursuing computer science degrees, particularly those without family support. I mentored young female entrepreneurs, sharing both technical knowledge and the hard-earned wisdom about self-worth that had come at such a high personal price. One of my favorite annual traditions became hosting what we called Orphan Christmas at my home, a gathering for employees and friends who for whatever reason couldn't or chose not to spend the holiday with biological family. What started with 6 people around my dining table grew to more than 30, a boisterous celebration of chosen family and mutual support. Sophia remained my most trusted advisor and friend, our relationship evolving into something that felt like what a healthy mother-daughter bond should be. She challenged me when needed but never withheld affection based on compliance. When she faced her own health crisis, I was there daily, repaying the lifeline she had thrown me years earlier when I sat crying in that rental car. 3 years after my final Christmas with my biological family, I received a letter from my teenage niece, Michael's daughter. She wrote that she'd done a school project on women in technology and had researched me learning about LogiSync and my advocacy for girls in STEM. "I'm sorry for how our family treated you," she wrote. "I hope someday I can build something important like you did." Her letter moved me deeply. I responded with encouragement for her interests and an open invitation to visit San Francisco if she wanted to see our headquarters or talk about technology careers. I made it clear that my issues with her parents and grandfather were not her burden to bear. That correspondence became our small bridge, the only family connection I maintained, and one based on genuine mutual respect rather than obligation. My mother called occasionally, leaving voicemails that grew increasingly resigned to the reality that our relationship would never be what she wanted. My father never contacted me directly again. Through family grapevine, I learned their house had been sold to cover business debts and they'd moved to a smaller home in a different neighborhood. The construction company closed permanently. Did I feel vindicated? No. Their struggles gave me no pleasure. But neither did I feel responsible for rescuing them from consequences of their own making. The cycle of emotional manipulation had been broken, and I wouldn't reestablish it even out of compassion. James proposed on a quiet evening at home rather than with grand gestures. "I love who you are," he said simply. "Your strength, your compassion, your determination. I want to build a life with you that's nothing like what you came from and everything like what you deserve." We married in a small ceremony surrounded by the people who had chosen us and whom we had chosen in return. Sophia was my matron of honor. None of my biological family attended, though my niece sent a handmade card that I treasured. As our company approached its 10th anniversary, coinciding almost exactly with the 10th anniversary of being thrown out at Christmas, a reporter asked what I considered my greatest achievement: "Building a culture of genuine support," I answered without hesitation, "both within our company and in my personal life." Success isn't measured by valuation, but by creating environments where people can bring their authentic selves and be valued for who they are, not just what they produce. Sitting in my penthouse on Christmas Eve, looking out at the San Francisco skyline, I reflected on the long journey from that snowy night in Chicago to this peaceful evening surrounded by chosen family. The pain hadn't disappeared completely. Such wounds never entirely heal, but it had transformed into wisdom that shaped how I led, loved, and lived. Family isn't defined by DNA, but by consistent care, by celebrating victories and supporting through defeats, by seeing someone's true self and valuing it unconditionally. The people who truly deserve a place in your life are those who support your growth even when it doesn't benefit them, who want your happiness even when it takes you in unexpected directions. Sometimes the greatest act of self-love is walking away from those who cannot see your worth. And sometimes the most profound success isn't measured in dollars, but in creating a life that reflects your values rather than your wounds. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice to distance yourself from toxic family relationships? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe to show your support. Remember that your worth isn't determined by those who fail to see it, and creating boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for building the life you deserve. Thank you for listening to my story, and may your own journey lead you to people who celebrate exactly who you are.